Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Unfiltered Perspectives. I'm Tara.
I'm Kimberly.
And I'm Leslie.
We're glad to have you here with us for our part 3 of our series on building strong partner relationships. In our last episode, we touched on some positive ways to enhance our connections and strengthen our bonds. This time, we're moving forward with an even more uplifting approach. We'll be discussing specific actions and exploring how we can keep our relationships healthy and vibrant. Today, we're going to talk about healing and prevention. We know that every relationship faces challenges, but it's how we handle these bumps in the road that really makes all the difference. We'll discuss ways to heal from past hurts, how to grow together, and how to prevent issues from arising in the future. Things like maintaining and promoting the health of our relationships before negativity has a chance to take root. This episode, hopefully, will be all about positivity and progress. We're focusing on solution and growth, showing how we can create healthier, happier, and more resilient relationships. Let's talk about how we can nurture our connections and build a strong foundation for the future. This is Unfiltered Perspectives, where real talk leads to real growth, and every perspective is valued.
Thank you so much, Tara, for that introduction into this topic, part 3, building greater relationships and what we can do to, enhance our relationships, make them better, make them stronger. One of you ladies want to get us started with just some ideas of what you've come up with or what you've done in your relationships just to kind of make things better.
We're really going to take this into a positive direction. And I think that one of the ways that we can do that, and I know we mentioned in the introduction how to heal from past hurts. And I just want to touch on that briefly because I feel like we spent a lot of time on that last time. But one of those things is acknowledge the pain, understand and accept past issues. Forgiveness is a big one. Just being able to let go and move forward. And communication, where we openly discuss any past hurts that we may have had, and to prevent future misunderstandings requires communication about figuring out where you are and where you need to be, where you want to be. And part of that also, I think, really involves taking steps to regain and strengthen probably trust that you have with your partner so that you can grow together.
Okay. So I agree. We've talked about communication a lot, and I don't think that that's really something that we can get away from because it's so key in all relationships. So in dating relationships and marriage relationships, outside or not outside of, but in addition to communicating about, past hurts and how to heal from that. Once we have gotten to the point where we can discuss those things with our significant other and we don't dwell on those things, but like you said, heal from it and move past that. What are some things that you think couples can do to just remind each other what brought them together in the first place? Remembering why they're together, remembering, that relationships are work. We'll about that little acronym raw later, but relationships are work, and what else we can do to, strengthen that and just continue to grow together.
I think that what I've experienced, one of the easiest ways to do that is to show appreciation to your partner on a daily basis and many times a day, as often as you can, just to, when they do something nice, say thank you, acknowledge the things that are good about your partner, acknowledge the things that they do for you, and try to actually reciprocate the good things, doing nice things for each other, showing that you care about them, showing appreciation for them, and just really just showing your affection often.
Right. Some of the things that come to mind. You're talking about, reciprocation. That should be automatic. And we know that it's not always, but it should be. So if you're not doing that, if we're not doing that, let's try to do that more. Let's try to remember the things that our partner is doing for us. And like you said, reciprocate that. Let them know that they're appreciated as well. Some things that come to mind, it doesn't have to be overwhelming, doesn't have to be looked at as a task. Just do something fun. Like make sure that you all take time for the relationship. Have a date night. It can be planned or it can be spontaneous, but make sure that you're still dating each other and having fun with each other.
You mentioned have a date night, and that reminded me of something. It reminded me of the journal that you created.
Yes, the journal. I have a married couples journal, but it's not just for married couples. If you're dating or you share a home together, I think that it's a great tool. And some of those things are in there, about having a date night, cook together, do something fun, do something spontaneous, write each other love letters.
Mm.
Yeah, write each other love letters. Do the little things that really make a difference in a Kimberly, you want to add something to this discussion?
Sure. I like the idea of a date night and of spontaneity, but I would go further and say to not actually rely on spontaneity. And yes, do plan a date
Mhm.
night or like be intentional about making time to do things together. If you have shared interests, I hope you have shared interests. Be intentional about doing things around those shared interests. But also, have your own interests on the side. Don't have, I think I said this last week, you don't need
Mhm.
to have your entire life wrapped up around your partner. So I think a key part of keeping a relationship strong is having interests outside of the relationship, taking care of yourself.
And I guess that could be the joy of it, something that your partner is interested in that you may not necessarily not be interested in, but you've just never joined in that particular activity with them. That's something fun and exciting to look forward to that you can do together from time to time so that you both still have your individual interests and activities, but also every once in a while you can come together and share in that with that person. That's also fun.
Yeah, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Even as far when we say spending time together, having some shared interests or just sharing an interest or doing some things that your partner likes to do, those are all really cool things. I'm just thinking about some of the things that I like to do, some things that my husband and I like to do. Like we pick a series or something that we want to binge watch sometimes, and we just we sit in the living room and do that. One of the things I wanted to go back to a little bit though about the showing appreciation and affection is I mentioned saying thank you, but it doesn't even have to be about anything, that they did for you or that, some grand gesture or anything, although grand gestures are lovely, but it doesn't have to just be about that. Some people might think it's weird, but not if, because I do, when I make breakfast and John was like, oh, thank you for making breakfast. And he doesn't have to thank me, but that he does, I think it's just like the sweetest thing.
Yeah.
Or, acknowledging when he like, I don't know, does a task that I really don't want to do. Like I hate cleaning the shower. I don't do it. I don't do it, but he does.
Mhm.
And that is something I don't always say thank you or acknowledge it, but I sometimes do, and I probably should because he's doing something that I don't want to do, and he does it,
Mhm.
and he does because he knows I don't want to do it, and I don't like to do
Mhm.
it. So I think that's really
That,
special.
and we're not going to get into gender roles again, but it's very true because I don't particularly enjoy going grocery shopping. I've gotten to the point, especially since COVID, where now everything is delivered to you. And so I've gotten, into the place of having everything delivered. However, my son and his dad came in the other day and they had done all the grocery shopping. And boy, it was a big thank you. But he has to eat too. But it was just one of those things where I didn't have to do it. And believe me, I really, really appreciated that the men went. His dad went and took the initiative and went to the grocery store and did what people typically think is what the mom or the wife or the girlfriend is supposed to be doing. But I appreciated it. It was one less thing that I had to do. And so that was very much appreciated.
Mhm. One of the other things that I mentioned is being affectionate and touching and things like that. And if you're a couple who sleeps in the same bed, not all couples do, I acknowledge that, but if you are, one of the things that I always love is even if you're like sleeping like far apart in the bed, like if some body part like touches, I don't, it's weird, like I'll like have my foot touch or something like that. Sometimes he'll kick it off because he'll say I need to clip my toenails, but whatever. The point is, the point is that little thing, and it's not, you don't have to be all hugged up on because sometimes
Yeah.
that's tiring, but even something like that, something as little as
Simple,
that, it just warms my heart. You know what I mean?
display of affection
Mm-hmm.
is appreciated. The whole kiss on the forehead thing, random when you're not thinking about it or expecting it. It makes you warm and goofy and
Yeah. But that's another thing. A part of like quality time together is finding time to just have fun together and laugh together. Have those little moments where you can just be silly. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I definitely do. Yeah. I'm pretty silly. I'm pretty silly anyway. I'm reminded of that I'm pretty silly. But we have, I'll just say my other. When I say my other, everyone will start to know who I'm talking about. But he has this, interest, this hobby, I guess you call it. And I've recently joined him in that and just kind of now found it to be our thing. And I love it, but I still try to make sure that he still has that space and that time.
Mm-hmm.
But it just creates a different type of fun thing that we do, a different type of bond. And we're allowed to kind of just relax and be silly, not so serious and still enjoy each other and have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
But now kind of, our new thing. So
I love that. So other things, being supportive of each other, encouraging each other. For instance, this podcast and some other things that I've done, I'm really stepping outside of my comfort zone. And I know that I have his support because he's always encouraging me and he'll listen. He doesn't listen necessarily as soon as they're released, but he does get around to listening to them eventually. And he'll actually discuss it with me. Like, oh, I listened to your thing.
yeah, yeah,
And we
yeah,
talk about it. So that's something else. But being supportive of each other's maybe their hobbies, their
yeah.
goals, their dreams, just to show that
And
you
like
care
you
and
said,
that you're behind them, you have their back.
yeah, and like you said, everybody doesn't have that thing. They don't have that thing, but they have something.
Hmm.
So you just figure out what that something is. For you, it was that. It's that support of your podcast and different things that you're doing. So find out what that thing is. Yeah. Even if you're in a relationship where you might be struggling, and sometimes we don't take a minute to look at things that we ourselves might be able to do differently or do a little bit better because we're so focused on the issue in that moment. And it takes a lot to pull yourself out of whatever's going on and ask yourself, okay, what can I be doing a little better, a little differently? Where can I show up differently? And kind of take the microscope off of the other person and just look at what it is you may be able to do to get you get you back to that place where, in your opinion, things were good or things were better and get
Hmm.
back to that. Does that make sense?
It does.
It does. I have more.
Go for it.
Okay, so we talked about, the healing process and not just healing, but also when you want to keep things in a healthy realm. I think it's important that when someone makes a mistake, or even you yourself you make a mistake, that there is forgiveness of yourself and each other. I think that we have to be patient with each other. I think patience goes a long way. Another thing that a lot of people struggle with is apologizing when you're wrong. And I've had experiences with people when they're wrong, they will argue you to the ground rather than admit that they're wrong. But it's important, I think, to at some point I don't want to say take the high road, but yeah, take the high road. Look at yourself. And when you're wrong, just say you're sorry and move on.
So what do you do in a relationship when both of you like legitimately believe that you're right?
And sometimes, and I'm guilty of it too, we don't want to apologize. We feel like apologizing is admitting that you were wrong. And that may be where some people struggle. And I have to take my own advice because I've said so many times that I'm sorry doesn't necessarily mean I was wrong. Sometimes you can just say, I'm sorry that we're going through this. How do we feel? Or I'm sorry that we have this issue or this problem. How can we turn this around? It doesn't always mean that you're wrong. You are just sorry that we're in this space, in this place, and let's figure out how to move beyond it.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can get past feeling like I'm sorry means that I was wrong and I'm not going to admit that, then that's a good place to start.
And sometimes you just have to agree to disagree.
Right.
What's that look, Kim?
So agree to disagree it's just a phrase that I'm often not sure what people mean when they say that.
It means that if I see the sky as blue and you see the sky as green, I'm always going to see it as blue. You're always going to see it as green. And so, oh, wow, we're never going to agree on that. So we just have to move on from there.
Mm-hmm.
No sense arguing about it until the end of days. It is what it is for me. And it is what it is for you.
And that is just, to me, just accepting a person's perspective.
Mm-hmm. Even if it's wrong.
Even yeah, that this your perspective. This is how you see it. No matter what I say to you, it's not going to change your opinion, your idea, your perspective. This is how you're standing on your business. No, you see it, and us going back and forth is not going to change that. So discussing it till we're blue in the face, arguing about it, is only going to make things worse, but it's not going to change how you or I see things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm thinking, for me, I think it's figuring out what are those things that are, I don't know if I would call them red lines or stakes in the ground or core values that we can't that if we disagree, we can't really be in this kind of a relationship. And what are those things that we can disagree on and still move forward?
But I guess depending on what it is, then that's a personal choice.
Yeah.
And the type of relationship that we're talking about. If it's something that you and the partner find, it's not, you can have your opinion about something and I can have my opinion about something, and it doesn't affect the relationship in such a way that we can't continue to have one.
Right.
Even as aunt and niece, sister and sister, we all have different opinions about different things and we respect each other's opinion. It doesn't change the dynamic of our relationship.
Right.
Very well said. I love that.
Yeah. Thank you.
I was watching something one day and the person said, just having an argument or a discussion with another person, and she's like, well, you're entitled to your wrong opinion.
Oh my.
I said that just today. So I'm in New York State and it's primary day, and I typically work the polls on election day.
All right.
But I'm an election inspector and we have bipartisan situation. And there's a person that I just really disagree with politically. And so I told her today, I was not working today. I just went to vote. And I said, I just can't believe that how somebody who I like so much could just be so wrong. How you could just be so wrong.
That's funny.
Yeah. So another part of the whole forgiveness thing, and I think Leslie, you mentioned it before, is sometimes people just need their space. And so sometimes it's okay not to force a resolution on the spot when it's very likely that one won't be had without things going pretty awry, and just give each other some space as needed.
That is definitely something I'm working on.
Oh,
We try so hard to prove our point.
mhm.
Sometimes it's just not necessary or worth it in a lot of cases. Choose your battles.
Yeah. Another thing that sometimes happens with people in partnerships, in relationships in general, is when something goes wrong or something is not as you might like, people sometimes tend to try to find blame or to cast blame instead of working towards solutions. And I think that's something that once we get a handle on not doing that, trying to find a solution rather than casting blame, when you have a criticism of something, take issue with the behavior and not the person, if that makes any sense.
Mm.
I mean, well, I think you want to be on the same side or the same team, right? So you want to be moving in the right direction, pulling in the right direction. And so if I feel like we're against each other, that's not going to be a healthy relationship. So if I don't feel like you have my back, I have your back, we're probably not going to do well.
But too,
Absolutely.
like Tara, what you just said reminds me of, what I said a few minutes ago about apologizing, not necessarily for your actions or your behavior or how you feel or thinking that you're wrong, but just, I'm so sorry that we're in this space. How do we move past it? And then with what Kim just said, you have to look at, and it's not in every situation, but you have to look at if you have the same goal. Sometimes you have the same goal, but we're going about it two entirely different ways. And that's where the friction comes from. And again, you have to remind each other that we are fighting for the same thing. We are working toward the same thing. So how do we kind of get on the same page? How do we figure out how to do this thing together? Because we're trying to accomplish the same goal. And it's hard when you really do have two different views or two different opinions. And if you can try to come away from that and start looking at what it is you're trying to get in the end, it might be helpful.
It would definitely be helpful. Figure out what your goal is and then work back from there.
I say this every time. I'm so tired of saying it. I swear, I think Tara gets in my head every every episode that we've done so far. Yeah, I feel like I'm just getting, free therapy sessions when I get on with you guys. It's free. Yay.
Well, speaking of free, yay. That reminds No, because we're talking about relationships right now, and I am going to be launching my relationships podcast called, and you mentioned it earlier, Raw.
Yeah,
Relationships are work.
yeah. And wait,
Coming in a few weeks in July. It was supposed to be June, but July works better for my schedule. So be on the lookout for that. Relationships are work.
I am wait. I am excited, and I cannot wait to get in on that.
Keeping it real, keeping it raw.
Woo. Yeah, yeah, that's going to be great. Proud of you, and I'm excited for you, and I know it's going to be amazing.
Thank you,
Amazing.
thank you, thank you.
We'll definitely share when it's ready. I'm
Absolutely.
excited about that. So, shameless plug. We're talking about relationships. I've already mentioned I'll call it a couples journal. It does say married couples journal, but I would throw that information out there somewhere. I guess at the end of this podcast, we'll let you know. Actually, you can, when you email us at unfilteredperspectives@outlook.com if you're interested. We'll try to put it on our Unfiltered Perspectives page so you can get a look at that and stay updated there with the upcoming Raw podcast and also the journal that I currently have. And I'm sure there'll be more to come.
Yeah. So, in talking about these stronger relationships, we talked about forgiveness, we talked about patience, acceptance, we talked about affection and appreciation. Did we talk about trust and reliability yet? How to foster that? Well, I think that one of the ways that we can build trust in relationships and thereby, help strengthen them is to, I guess, talk to each other about what's going on in our lives, just being open and being comfortable with being vulnerable, being comfortable with not necessarily, I said being vulnerable, being comfortable sharing vulnerable things with your partner.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that when times get rough, that you will stick together to work them out, that you prioritize your relationship. And that part, prioritizing your relationship can sometimes be a little tricky, I think, because people get so busy with doing their own thing, like with work, with friends, with extracurricular activities, with doing whatever it is they're doing, that sometimes they kind of let the relationship fall into the background rather than being in the foreground. And I know that sometimes I can be a little bit guilty of that when I have like so much going on that like I'll talk to this person on the phone for whatever reason. I'll talk to that person on the phone. Meanwhile, my partner is just sitting there like, well, where are you? I've been home for work for 2 hours, but you've been on the phone with this person for like the whole 2 hours. And, when do we get our time? So that also goes back to what you're talking about with spending quality time. But sometimes you have to be willing to say no to this thing over here so that you can actually spend time with your partner and prioritize the things that you need to keep that relationship alive and healthy rather than letting it wither because you're just so comfortable in it that you start to take your partner for granted.
Yeah, you have to make it a point of making the time and putting everything else aside and creating that quality time. It's important. Because I'm that other person. I'm that person like, hey, you've been doing this all day. I'm over here. Hello. You know what I mean? And that's their work. That's their thing. And because I don't have anything else to do, I might be waiting for them to finish up. But also, if you know that it takes him or her however many hours a day, or it takes them into 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, find something to do for yourself. You're not so focused on how much time they may have to spend working or doing other things. Get busy. Get busy finding some things to do on your own, and you will it's a healthy balance. When you're not busy, when you're bored, when you don't have anything to do for yourself, your own thing to do, you kind of feel like you're being forgotten about. But take that time to find some things to do. I've done that and it's working for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. A nice balance. But don't forget your partners.
Exactly. Exactly.
And respect each other's boundaries. That's a big one, I think, too.
Well, I have a question, and I hope this is still keeping it positive.
Mhm.
We talked about discussing hurts and being vulnerable. Do you feel like when there's a topic that's difficult and you feel like it may be somewhat explosive because it's fresh, do you think it's healthy just to not talk about it for whatever length of time, just to kind of, keep the peace and just kind of get back to enjoying a time until it's safe to readdress an issue? Or do you feel like that's unhealthy because you're sweeping it under the rug?
I think that if it's an issue that has to be addressed eventually, I think it's fine to give each other space
Mm-hmm.
in order to allow things to settle down a bit
Mm-hmm.
until you can think about it in a way or discuss it in a way that is not explosive, that you've had a
Mm-hmm.
chance to reflect before you act.
Okay.
I think it really depends on the dynamics of that relationship, honestly. I mean, I think taking some cool down time probably does work for some couples. I think other couples probably won't be able to
Mm-hmm.
sort of shift until they've addressed an issue.
And I asked that question because, again, we're trying to keep this on an upswing. keep things positive. I found most recently that just trying to force a conversation in a particular moment, in that moment, may be more damaging than, and still being able to, you're in that situation. Again, if you're in that situation, try to just kind of not sweep it under the rug, but just take a deep breath, step back from it for a little bit. Try to get back to where you can find what you love about the person, find what you enjoy, and spend some time doing those things until you come back to whatever the issue was a week ago or 2 weeks ago or a month ago, because now you're spending time and you're remembering why you fell in love with this person, why you're with this person, why you're dating this person, why you married that person. And that issue isn't at the forefront of things for a short period of time. And then in that time that you've kind of maybe reconnected, you will find a better way, an easier way, a more effective way to go back and approach that situation.
Beautifully said. And it actually reminds me of a couple of scriptures.
Yay. I wait.
Philippians chapter 4, verse 8 says, "Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things." And I think that that is perfect for our topic about building and maintaining healthy relationships, because it reminds us to think on positive qualities, positive actions, and it helps us to notice, to appreciate the best in our partners, in our relationships. It helps us to look for and to recognize, I think, the good things. And it helps when we do that, it helps us to be able to communicate, I think, more kindly with each other, allows us to show more appreciation. And just like I said before, focus on the positive aspects of our relationships. It reminds me of, no, that approach kind of reminds me of how when I was younger and I used to get really, really mad at like my brothers or sisters or even my parents. For some reason, I would always try to picture them as they must have been as babies. No, it's weird. I don't know why that is, but it reminds me of how I used to try to picture them as babies when they're like, didn't have all this like baggage and stuff. And they're like innocent and cute and sweet and, wanting and needing of our protections and love and stuff like that. And it kind of a lot of times diminished the bad feelings or the anger that I might have had or the resentment and stuff like that.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
It makes me think of the loving kindness meditation, right? And so that first step in the loving kindness meditation is you offer kindness to yourself. The second step, I might be getting the order wrong, is you think of somebody who you care about and you offer loving kindness to them. The third step is you think about somebody who you're struggling with, maybe who you want to punch in the face, but if you're a Buddhist and you don't want to punch anybody in the face. And then you offer loving kindness to them. And then you offer loving kindness to the world.
What Kim said reminded me of something. And Tara, I want to go back to what you were talking about, but it escapes me for a minute. Tara, what did you end with just a minute ago? What were you talking about?
Thinking of my adversaries as babies or
okay. Both of what you just said took me to a place, and it kind of the same thing. And Kim said something earlier as well about being mad at the behavior and not the person. So I try to look at where that behavior is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And then what Kim just said about just put me in the mind of just having a different grace and understanding for that person. I look at some things or some actions that I may have shown as a result of what I was going through in that moment. And I try to give that person a little bit of grace, have a little bit of empathy. We forget to do that. We do that for everyone outside of our home. We do it maybe at work. We do it with friends, and we forget to do that for our significant other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, we don't always say the right thing when we're upset or when we're angry. And we expect them to accept our apologies and, to be forgiven for our bad behavior in that moment. But we have to be willing to extend that same thing to them also. So
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
It does. It does. And it lines up perfectly with First Peter chapter 4, verse 8, which says that above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. If anyone happens to, get their hands on my journal, I also have scriptures in my journal that I think are very relevant. Certainly not all of them, but I did try to choose scriptures that would be helpful in your relationship journey. So you'll find that there. I hope that Tara will include scriptures in her Raw podcast because I love the scriptures. I personally love the scriptures. So I hope that that's an element that you will include in your upcoming podcast as well.
Actually, yes, I definitely will be including scriptures in that. Also, since we're talking about journals and talking about scriptures, I actually have a line of journals where some of them are Bible study journals, and some of them are work where I encourage you to reflect on a scripture, write about your reflections on that scripture. And I have gratitude journals and also some workbooks as well, where we talk about just things such as personal growth as well as our spiritual journey.
We're going to definitely add those to our Unfiltered Perspective pages, Instagram, Facebook, etc. But keep an eye out or an ear out for those things coming soon.
Well, that's all for today's episode of Unfiltered Perspectives. Thank you for joining us in this exploration into the positive actions that keep our relationships healthy and strong. Remember, by focusing on proactive care and daily acts of love, we can build a solid foundation. Thank you for being here with us today. And we hope that you have found this episode valuable. Please share it with others and be sure to tune in for a new episode every Thursday morning. Don't forget to leave a review and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Find us on Facebook and YouTube at Unfiltered Perspectives and on Instagram at Unfiltered Perspectives IG. And we'd love to take your listener questions. So if you have a question that you'd like us to address in the podcast, send it to unfilteredperspectives@outlook.com and let us know if you'd like us to use your name. I'm Kimberly.
I'm Tara.
And I'm Leslie. Thank you for joining us once again, and we'll see you here next time.